All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, SHIPIT Nation YouTube station? I got my guy Sheets with me again for another Monday. Looking forward to breaking down this 10-game. I'll call it an appetizer. Sheets the main course tomorrow. I mean, I know anybody out there, if you're playing on DraftKings, you looked at the contest today and you think they're wow and crazy. And then you look at tomorrow, and I know it's high stakes, but there's multiple satellites to get into there. $1 million up top tomorrow. Very similar size slate. So it should be nice to kind of talk through it. Pick Sheets brand as much as we can in regard to these bigger slates and that because tomorrow 12 games very similar to this 10-gamer, but a lot to unpack here. It's not a Coors Field slate. I know last time we were talking about Dodgers and Coors Field, I think we hit the nail on the head there. That's always nice, but every slate has its puzzle pieces, right, to try and figure out. And hey, you can think you have it all figured out at the end of the day. Wild stuff happens in baseball, and that's the glory of the sport. But Sheets, I'll bring you in, man. Happy Monday. How you doing, brother?
I'm not as well as Tommy Fleetwood. How about that, huh?
Tommy picks it. He finally got if there's one spot to do it, right, get it off your back. Obviously, Masters. Everyone loves the Masters and that. But to win the FedEx Cup, right, as your first win amongst the 30 best golfers from the season, that has to feel good. So, yeah, very happy for Tommy.
Sandbagging for $10 million. I love it. It's the best. But yeah, you know what? Maybe we should do the same thing. I don't really feel like winning tonight, so maybe we'll save it for tomorrow. But you know what? We may as well try to win tonight. And it's funny you mentioned the Dodgers stuff. For those that are used to or not used to me being on here or whatever, I'm really not usually into like takes and things like that. But I have to say that the last time I was here, we were like all over that. Like we had that was the Strider slate where all we wanted to do was we wanted to do a zero Strider and fade the Dodgers. And we were just wondering whether we were going to play too many White Sox or not. And everything basically we said smashed. So essentially, whatever we say today probably should do the opposite. But I'm really looking forward to it because tonight I think the hitting is not. Well, there's one team that kind of stands out, but everybody else is kind of close. And pitching, again, there's like it's a huge slate, but there seem to be a couple of standouts. So what that means is that there's probably going to be natural pivots off of the standouts. So I'm looking forward to going over this with you, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Not too often when you come on and give takes every day like I do for the MLB season and you filling in, right? Everybody loves you when you're right. Everybody hates you when you're wrong. And not too often do you nail the slate, but it felt pretty good to get that one. Hopefully we can at least run it back close enough and more importantly, just give people a lens into the slate, right? Kind of how we're seeing it and make their own decisions at the end of the day. That's the best part about this. So looking forward to it. We got Max Manning in here. I know he's having a hell of a last couple of weeks in the baseball streets. Multiple five-figure ships out there from Max. So hopefully he keeps it rolling. Jason Turno, Ortiz, Notes, Gangrene, Parabay, Gene, Jake Swales. Everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Yeah, Sheets, let's jump right in. In terms of pitching, obviously, I mean, we got Skubal and DeGrom on the slate. That's kind of the focal point in terms of the pitching. But there's some good arms around them that after the dry run, you see these guys that are kind of grayed out in SaberSim, and this is just sorted by projected score. I use an aggregate of kind of different our projections, Sabres projections, a couple of different sources, just kind of really get an idea of what the industry or what the kind of optimizers are going to do projections wise across the industry. And you see, we have Woodruff, we have Christopher Sanchez, we have Joe Ryan. All three of those guys are no slouches by any means, but they're just not going to hit when you have two guys in a DeGrom and a Skubal projected well above the rest of the field at a cheaper price point for one of them and similar price point for the other. So that's kind of the reason there. But again, you talked about the pivots, 8K and above. It's really Scherzer, DeGrom, and Skubal that are the quote-unquote projections plays. So let's hit on those three in particular for sure. But you got some other arms in here, right, as pivots. Guys like Hunter Green, I think, are very interesting. Brandon Woodruff, I know there's some talks there with his pitch count concerns. Last time I played him, it was kind of a slotted rest day in there, but they did push him back another day to give him another day of rest. Yesterday, Chad Patrick did start over Woodruff, so maybe that helps him a little bit. You got Christopher Sanchez, who's been really, really good this season. He's at 9,700. Joe Ryan is definitely up and down, has a ton of strikeout potential, gets a tough matchup there. So I think there's a lot of things to talk about here, but really hit on Skubal, DeGrom, and Scherzer, quote unquote, the projection plays and how to kind of approach it from that angle.
My thoughts on the three top guys, DeGrom, Skubal, and Scherzer, are these. So you could obviously make cases of why you don't want to play any of them. Like even Skubal. I mean, Skubal's in a pretty volatile matchup. You know, the Athletics. See, I'm finally saying it right. The Athletics. They can certainly like do some damage. Okay, to anybody. So you can make cases against these guys. The guys I would prefer to make the cases against though are DeGrom and Scherzer, and for similar reasons, I have issues with the ceiling on both these guys. Okay, so for different reasons. First of all, DeGrom. Again, being from New York, I mean, I've been a DeGrom kind of follower like forever, and you know, one day he'll pitch a season where he can actually pitch like 100 pitches a day for like a whole season, but it's going to be 20 years after my grandchildren die of old age. Okay, and now so what you have is DeGrom with these pitch count issues seemingly all the time, and so I'm not saying he's a bad play for like cash or like whatever. And as a median projection play, he's probably pretty good. But when you're playing these big GPPs, you really want ceiling. And when you have these kind of embedded, even if they're not hard caps, but you have these embedded, you know, pitch count issues, I prefer to go elsewhere than to live with that, especially, well, not especially, because of the high ownership. You know what I mean? Like you told me DeGrom is getting 80, 85 pitches at even 10K at 12% owned. I'm like, okay, I'm interested. But you tell me he's making 80 pitches and at 35% owned on a slate with a billion pitchers. I would prefer to fade that over fading like a Skubal. Skubal, you know, you're getting a zillion pitches, you know, and the guy's a menace. Scherzer, I have issues with similarly to DeGrom, but sort of differently. So Scherzer, I'm not too worried about whatever his pitch count is. The problem is that Scherzer is not really a ceiling guy anymore. You know, like he's a guy who shows up as a good median projection play seemingly all the time. But even though SaberSim and some other products, whatever, you know, say that they account for that in their correlations or whatever, I still feel as though you get too much of these non-ceiling guys in your lineup. So I think that him being probably the third highest owned, I guess, I would be more inclined to fade that also. So of these top three guys above 8K, I would actually have a little more confidence in Skubal despite the matchup, despite the higher price, than DeGrom and Scherzer just for lack of ceiling.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said here. I'll start with DeGrom. I mean, I get it, right? The Angels have them by far and away the most strikeouts over the last month against right-handed pitching. Like, it's not even close. They're sitting at 232 Ks against righties in 26 games played over the last month. The next closest is the Yankees at 186. So that tells you right there, does DeGrom have a ton of strikeout potential? Yes. Is his price probably too cheap for what the strikeout matchup is? Yes. But then you equate his 80 to 85 pitch ceiling that he seems to have. I mean, yeah, he got against Philly, right, and against Seattle, he went 99 to 95 pitches, but that's kind of an outlier. I mean, his ultimate ceiling, realistically, I think is 90 pitches here, which is far less than what Skubal. But again, the price is baked in. Is DeGrom a good play, projections-wise, everything? But am I willing to play a 50+% owned pitcher with a pitch count ceiling to what your point is? I don't know. There's places to do it. Single entry, 3 max, cash. That's probably the way to do it. In large field GPPs like the 111 multi-entry today, the $5, right, 150 max, the big knuckleball that has 50K to first, your chances of winning with DeGrom and playing with him compared to at that kind of ownership you're just kind of tunnel vision yourself into not only roster construction, but that. So there's places to play him. Single entry 3 max, DeGrom's definitely probably the preferred play. Not to say you have to play him or you don't have to play him. Just know that that's kind of where I would prefer to play him. And I prefer to be underweight in multi-entry. Seems like Sheets is kind of on the same page there. Scherzer, much of the same thing here. I mean, I talked about it in the slate plan. Minnesota, there's a lot of talk about this team has quit, this team, blah, blah. I mean, at the end of the day, Sheets, I know you've played sports and you're competitive. I've played sports. At the end of the day, it's very hard to envision professional athletes that are getting paid millions of dollars on live television with all these cameras on them for them to go out there and purposely not try. I mean, it's just not in these guys' nature. So for the talks of the team quit, yeah, has the front office and that probably quit and things like that? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the players are still going out there to play for the future of their careers. I don't think they quit. They have a lot of lefty power in that lineup to get to Max Scherzer, and Scherzer has not been able to keep the ball on the ground at all. I mean, this dude is over a 40% fly ball rate over the last month, allowing a ton of power. I have issues. I'd much rather pivot off of Scherzer to some of these other guys that we're going to talk about below 8K than play a chalky Max Scherzer SP2, because it's going to go DeGrom, it's going to go Scherzer, because what that allows you to do from a roster construction standpoint is play the Yankees, right? Very similar situation to a slate that we talked about last Monday, right, with the Dodgers, the high-priced Dodgers. Well, the Yankees aren't quite as high-priced as the Dodgers. They're also not in Coors Field, but they're facing the Washington pitching staff in that bullpen, right? So it's a similar slate in regard to roster construction, I think. And that's the reason why DeGrom and Scherzer are the guys that people want to click, because it allows you to still be able to afford 5 of those Yankees bats, right? To play the Jazzes of the world, the Judges of the world, right? Because you do have a salary cap. You do have to stay within it. My favorite pitcher on the slate is going to be Skubal. And again, that is not bulletproof by any means. You look at the Athletics over the last month against left-handed pitching. They're second in OPS in all of baseball, 5th in batting average. And then you pull it in that ballpark and the weather, it is by far and away the best place on the slate to pitch or to hit in. I'm chasing strikeouts. I think Skubal has the strikeouts. I think he comes in slightly lower owned than a DeGrom. So I like flipping the build there and playing Skubal if I had to pick one up at the top. I want to touch on 2 guys that you didn't mention. I like Christopher Sanchez a lot here and Hunter Green. Hunter Green is the direct pivot for me right off of Jacob DeGrom at similar upside, a fraction of the ownership. The pitch count should be higher. He has a high strikeout arm. We know it. It is a Dodgers matchup that he gets. However, the Dodgers have had a ton of strikeouts. I mean, the Padres pitching staff just absolutely lit them up all weekend long. Yeah, they're back in LA. They're back home. But this is not the same Dodgers team, right? They have guys in the back half of that lineup that have strikeout. And if Hunter Green has his stuff, I think he has the strikeouts to match or outperform a guy like DeGrom at a fraction of the ownership. So in tournaments, I like being overweight on guys like Hunter Green, Christopher Sanchez. For me,
well, the reason why I feel bad, I mean, again, I'll get used to the kind of the flow of the show a little bit as we do these. Yeah, I was going to get back to these guys. I was going to ask you the Sanchez, Woodruff, and Green. You know, these 3 kind of other guys. I mean, what I was going to say is Woodruff to me. I have similar issues to him. I mean, he was supposed to start, I think, yesterday or something.
Yesterday. Chad Patrick.
So I mean, I don't know what's going on with his pitch count either, honestly. So I don't know about that. And Sanchez, I like a little bit, but he doesn't have the same kind of strikeouts as some of these other guys. I'm kind of with you. I think the Hunter Green is the best play to go with Skubal if you can afford him. You know what I mean? He's a beast. Okay. Now, okay. So he's against the Dodgers. All right. You know what? Well, that's why he's not 11K, or that's why he's not 70% owned or something like that. So you get a little bit of that, but it's not like all the Dodgers are great. I mean, all these guys that people have been stacking in their Dodger stacks for the last week or two, like Michael Conforto, like Conforto and that Rushing and Alex Call and all these guys. I'm not particularly afraid of these guys, you know, and so Hunter Green, I think, you know, is definitely a preferred play, honestly, to pretty much all those guys, with the exception of Skubal. So I actually like of these top 8, 8Ks and above, I would say Skubal and Green would be my top ones.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with you there. Realistically, I think you can limit it if you want to. I know, right, in your MME process that you talk about for subscribers, if you're a member, right, you have your process. You did a video for us talking about that. I know you avoid or try to, right, unchecking guys. I like to try and give the little bit angle. I know a lot of the viewers are 3-max and single entry out there. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I would probably stick to Green, DeGrom, and Skubal for myself, above 8K. I talked about Scherzer, right? But again, in single entry 3-max stuff, does he have a ceiling at that price point? Absolutely. Is he going to be owned? Things like that, right? So that's why I would leave him in. My favorite pitcher in this top tier is definitely, I'm with you, is Hunter Green. I think his strikeout potential and the ownership is off there. And it's not the same Dodger matchup. I mean, you got Miguel Rojas projected to start in this lineup here tonight. Are you really afraid of Hunter Green, who throws 100 miles an hour and has a ton of strikeout potential, 11, 12K strikeout upside? I'm not. So that's for me. Skubal and Green, I'm with you, lockstep. I do have a little bit more interest in Sanchez. I get the Mets are red hot right now. I think Sanchez is a good pitcher, can navigate his way and at least come close at a fraction of the ownership for tournaments there for me. Now let's jump down to this lower tier. Sheets, I'm going to call it a couple guys that are kind of the projection guys. Cam Schlittler for the Yankees, coming off a massive game. His pitch count should be somewhere around 90 pitches, 90-ish there. Hit on him. And then it kind of dries up really quickly. I think guys like Emmett Sheehan are kind of interesting for me, myself. And then it's really realistically the rest of the range is you could play any of them. You could play none of them. So that makes me to kind of jump down to the bottom to guys like Jose Soriano, I think are interesting at his price of $5,700, which is kind of shocking to me in terms of that price adjustment. I mean, this dude has shown a ceiling this year and is a ground ball guy, pitching in the best pitching park all season in Globe Life there. So hit on some of these guys. And then the McGreevy guy, McGreevy, lowest strikeout upside realistically on the slate, but pitches in a decent above average pitcher's ballpark facing the Pittsburgh Pirates, who really isn't a lineup people are scared of. So at 6,300, is he going to be the top scoring pitcher on the slate? Absolutely not. Highly unlikely. However, what's it going to do for your roster construction? That's how you get to teams like the Yankees. That's how you get to teams like the Phillies if you want to play the spend-up Phillies, right? That's how you get to some of the spend-up Tigers, right, out in that ballpark in Sacramento. So touch on some of these guys down here. Any other guys I didn't mention that you think are kind of interesting as well? If I do recall last show on Monday, you talked about our guy Gomez from the White Sox, a little gem down there, posted himself a pretty nice game as well.
So Schlittler is the guy, like you mentioned. I mean, he's the one that has most everything going for him. He's got the pitch count. He's got a good matchup. Okay, he's not the greatest matchup, but I mean, I presume he's going to get the win or whatever at least, and that's worth something, you know. But one thing I would advise, if you play Schlittler, I bet you that a lot of the optimizers and a lot of the sims or whatever will pair Schlittler with the Yankees because of that correlation. So you might end up getting a little bit too chalky with him with Yankee stacks. So if you do have it in you to be very technical about who you play them with, maybe Schlittler with non-Yankees might be something worth doing. The only other guy I would mention, and this happened last time, you mentioned guys that I come up with the Gomez who looked like he was going to do great, then he did okay, he did well enough. If you want to play again with someone who's like kind of awful, but he can sling it a little bit, is the Oviedo from Pittsburgh. Now again, it's almost like the Gomez. I mean, he has like a 33% like strikeout rate, I guess in the minors, something like that. And again, he walks guys also. So it's all kinds of nonsense that he can put up there. But if you want to play a $6,500, $6,800 guy that's got upside in the knuckleball or something like that, I will add him to the mix. Okay, so Schlittler would be the semi-obvious play down there. And again, my caution, if you were maxing or whatever, is I wouldn't play him necessarily with the Yankees. I just think that's a little bit too obvious and chalky. And the only other guy I would mention is the Oviedo.
Yeah, no, he definitely has strikeout upside. Last game posted a really good game. I know I don't love watching game logs, but at least I look at it for pitch count, number one, and then just the ceiling potential that these guys can have. And in a much tougher matchup against the Blue Jays, did post 22, right, where he did display that strikeout ability that he showed in the minors. Again, he's only been through 2 starts. He has a pitch count concern for sure, number one. Number two, he can walk dudes, which can run him right out of the game. But again, it's not the scariest matchup for him going into St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis is just not that scary of a team, in my opinion. So he does have upside. So I don't mind that call there. At least he does show a ceiling at a cheap price point. And nobody's going to click that name. Much more people are going to click a guy like McGreevy because his pitch count should be there. He gets the matchup against the Pirates. Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of strikeout upside, but if McGreevy can go 6 innings, right, and get you maybe 2 or 3, 4 strikeouts, somewhere in that ballpark, and potentially get you the win, right? That should be enough at a $6,300 price point, obviously contingent on what these top tier guys do. So I think McGreevy's interesting, and I want to hit on Soriano just because, I mean, this dude, I think, should be in the low 7K range. 5,700 is a little criminal. I'm not that afraid of a Texas team when you have a ground ball pitcher like a Soriano who can get you innings. I mean, he can go 90 plus pitches. He can keep the ball on the ground, which helps limit damage, right? Even if you do get a little wild, which he can, he's at least showing strikeout upside and strikeout potential there. There is some strikeout bats in that Texas lineup that I think he can navigate. And with his ground ball rate he's one of the few turbo ground ball pitchers in the league. Guys at the back half, right? Like Tellez, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Higashioka, if he's in there, they all have strikeouts in that lineup that he can pick up upside. And at 5,700, I think I'd take a chance on him too. So I don't mind him as well. But realistically, Schlittler is the preferred guy. And I like that call that you talked about. Just be worried on how much Schlittler and 5 Yankee stacks you do have, because that kind of is the key to open up some of those high-priced Yankee stacks in there to fit with one of the DeGroms or the Scoobals of the world. I think we broke it down really good in terms of pitching. My pitching pool would look something similar to this here. Kind of put a cap myself is kind of what I like to do on DeGrom. Don't want to full fade him, but don't really want to be super overweight like the field wants to be there. So somewhat slightly underweight, still give myself out is something that I'd like to do with guys like DeGrom in these types of situations. Let's jump over and pull up the stone here, talk game by game sheets in terms of offenses. First game on the slate is a pretty decent weather game. Wind is blowing out here too, right center field in Yankee Stadium. Obviously, we know this is a good place to hit. Temperatures are in the upper to mid 70s, 9 to 12 mile an hour winds blowing out here. So it should be pretty hitter friendly. And obviously it already does play hitter friendly. Got Brad Lord on the mound for the Nationals and that absolutely atrocious bullpen behind him. Yankees, quote unquote, should be in a great spot to smash here. They're going to be owned. So how do you play them? If you're playing them, how are you going to get different with the Yankees here?
Yeah, so I would say that they rate to be one of the top 2 stacks for me, just the way I rate stacks. And I actually have them the second highest owned. I'll get there when we get there. But I don't have them rated that much higher than other teams. Okay, let's just put it that way. So yes, I do have Yankees in one of the top 2 stacks, but again, it depends on what type of thing you're playing. I hate to be like this, but if you're playing single entry or whatever, go for it. You know what I mean? Play the Yankees, play, DeGrom with even Soriano works, whatever. Or Scuba with Soriano, and then you can play these Yankees or the McGreevy or even, or Schlittler if you want to be ultra conservative. But yeah, I have them rated one of the top 2 stacks on the board, and the usual guys: Grisham, Rice, McMahon, even Wells, Judge. I don't know what's his name starting today? Stanton? I guess he's not even in.
No, Stanton. This is the confirmed. Yeah. So
So any of these guys are Jazz Chisholm. I mean, whatever you get to. But sure, the Yankees are in very, 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 very good spot. As far as Washington goes, again, like I always think about is it a good idea to play a team if the other pitcher is going to be sort of popular? You just got to think about it a little bit. I don't think Schlittler is going to be popular enough for me to like make sure to play Washington. If I did get a couple, I'm not going to like X amount or anything like that. But again, I always want to think about that stuff. And again, Schlittler is going to get some ownership. I don't think he's going to be like 15, 20% or anything like that. So I'll probably stay away from Washington in low risk stuff. But Yankees certainly are, a big part of your low risk builds.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think an interesting way to play the Yankees is not play Aaron Judge right away. I like sticking to the lefties against Lord. His strikeouts are a little bit more to the left side, but that's where his power and his walks and his control issues come in. And not to mention these Yankees lefties just absolutely murder right-handed pitching. So guys like Grisham, Rice, Bellinger, Jazz, Dominguez, even McMahon, Caballero, I think is interesting down there just for the fact that all it takes for him is to get walked and he's stealing second and potentially third every time he touches the base, and he's 3,400. You can wrap it around to the top and go like a McMahon, Dominguez, McMahon, Caballero, Grisham, Rice. I think that's a very, very contrarian, interesting way to stack the Yankees. Still play the popular team. Still play the team that's probably one of the highest likelihoods they score the most amount of runs on the slate. Does that mean it wins you a tournament? No. But in single entry 3-max stuff, I think playing that team and playing a little differently. And hey, Lord's not going to be in there for very long. And then you got a very bad bullpen behind him. So just little things like that I think are interesting. I definitely have the Yankees as one of my top stacks on the slate. Nationals, not so much. I'm much more on the side of Schlittler than playing these Nationals. I don't think the leverage is enough. It's not like a DeGrom or a Scherzer type leverage spot I think that we can have on this slate. Takes us to the next game here. We are going up to Rogers Center Dome up in Toronto. Max Scherzer on the mound at the current state. The Twins, right? The talk on the Twins, they quit. This team is done. They quit. It's over for them. So naturally, this game is going to be 10-0. Twins are going to just wave the white flag. I don't think so. I think the Twins are pretty interesting as a leverage stack on this slate, especially at these salaries. I mean, you look at this price; they are absolutely free to stack up. I think other people are going to go to teams like the Pirates that are going to be super cheap to stack up over a team like the Twins. I think the Twins are pretty interesting here. They rank really good in our hitter rankings. Scherzer gives up a ton of fly balls. This entire Twins team all hits the ball in the air. I think there's upside here. Blue Jays, been one of the best teams in baseball. Joe Ryan has shown some fits to give up some power in home runs. Doesn't generally get too blown up there, so I don't love the Blue Jays side, but I think an interesting game here from a bats perspective. What do you see here, Sheets?
Yeah. So first of all, to your question or your rhetorical question earlier about teams giving up or something like that. I mean, baseball is first of all, don't forget, baseball is the ultimate like individual stats sport. Like everybody's all concerned about all their numbers and stuff. There's no way that a baseball hitter is just not is gonna give up at the plate. There's just absolutely no way. Somebody was asking about this earlier. What happens when teams tank? It's not like basketball where you can not play these teams, these guys the minutes or anything like that. I mean, baseball, everybody's going to get their at-bats. They're all going to try their hardest. Okay, maybe you won't lug it out to first as hard as you might otherwise. Maybe you won't try to take third on a double every once in a while, or maybe they won't be as aggressive stealing bases. Okay, I guess. But from an individual perspective, I think that's kind of silly to say, okay, a team's tanking, so I'm not going to play them. I kind of agree with you with respect to Minnesota. They're not showing up as a particularly, good projected stack, which one of the reasons why they're going to be low owned. And another reason they're going to be low owned is people are playing Scherzer. So if you're telling me that Scherzer gives up fly balls, I'm down with that, So it's in actuality, if I'm not going to probably force in Minnesota, but if I get to them, I'm certainly going to be pretty chilled about it. I don't know if I have it in me to play them in 3-max and below or anything like that. I don't think you even need that much leverage. But I definitely would be very happy with a healthy dose of them in MMA.
Yeah, I think they're a really nice secondary stack too. I'd probably go in 5-man stack Minnesota and single entry 3-max stuff. Probably not. Where I'm playing 20 max tonight and 2 main teams in single entries and the qualifier there to hope to snake some mega. They're in live contention. I'll tell tell the chat here for some mini stacks, guys like Cody Clemens, Matt Wallner, James Outman, Larnach, the power hitting fly ball lefties. I mean, you look at Scherzer this year and last year, 18% K rate to lefties, 223 ISO allowed, and a fly ball rate of 33%. I mean, I'll take my chances on a guy that his career is declining, that people automatically want to click just for the name recognition alone and the quote unquote fictitious, the Twins wave the white flag. I'll take my chances. I think they're a good stack. Guys like Brooks Lee too, dual position eligibility. I prefer the lefties here. Scherzer is really still even elite against right-handed hitters. So I want to take a chance with the lefties, and those are the bats I wanted to play anyways from the Twins. So I have the Twins lefties pretty high up on my list overall. Blue Jays, Dalton Varsho would be my favorite bat. He's just red hot right now, 4,700 for his upside that he displays. At his ownership, I think is a pretty decent click there, but not too much interest otherwise on the Blue Jay stacks in general at their price points.
How do you play those qualifiers? Do you make sure you get stacks, or you don't care as much? I imagine you don't care quite as much, but do you still require at least a 4-man stack, or you just play your top players and stuff?
Yeah, I always build at least at minimum a four-man. Most of the time I'm playing my main stack, and then what fits. I'm not forcing, okay, if these two guys fit, I'm unclicking them and trying to figure out or looking at the builds, right, when I'm using my optimizer. So I don't force it as much, but naturally I'm going to lean at least a 4-man stack, usually just from a correlation standpoint, because I know a lot of the field is building that way as well. So I'm just trying to give myself the easiest way to, I think I got to place top 50 tonight, right, in that qualifier.
Is that what it is? How many entries is it?
So it's 670 people in the top 50 get tickets to the main event tomorrow. So you're not playing for first, but again, you do have to play for the top half. So it's just like I treat it like a regular GPP for the most part. A little bit more contrarian. Typically how I play single entries, right? I play single entries a little bit more contrarian than most, just because I know I'm going to lose more often, but when I win, I'm in contention for the top. Like I've been the last couple of times, and that's just the way I play. So Twins kind of fit that script, and I play satellites very similar because it is very, very top heavy, right? Even in single entries, the prize pools drop off pretty drastically. Realistically, it's a little bit more flatter than some of the tournaments. So I build it much more GPP like than cash.
I'll tell you, Sabersim does a pretty good job with these qualifiers. Actually, they put the prize structure and the payouts into the contest fields.
Yep.
And if you run the sims with the for these megas and these qualifiers, it does a pretty good job of factoring all that stuff in.
Yep.
I mean, I don't play these things all too often. I'm playing it tonight, but from what I hear, I mean, they do a really good job of that.
Yeah, it's very good, at least to give you an idea, right, of the types of builds. And then if you want to make your own little twist on it, the quote unquote, right, no ball aspect of it, you can definitely do that too, right? So there's both sides, but yeah, they do a great job of factoring all of that in. Next game on the slate, Sanchez and Senga. We didn't talk about Senga at all realistically in the pitcher aspect. He's at 8K. The Phillies, not the greatest ballpark to hit in here, but two high-powered offenses. The Mets have been smashing baseballs all weekend long. Not the same matchup as what they've seen all weekend here with Christopher Sanchez, in my opinion. Phillies bullpen, pretty solid. Mets bullpen, pretty solid. Not the greatest park. I think the Phillies are kind of interesting a little bit as a high upside stack here, just because Senga can always get wild and walk his way right out of the game, right? And then give up a home run to guys like Schwarber and Harper and Marsh, things like that. And then you don't see the best arms come out of the pen there. I think the Phillies are kind of sneaky overall in that same kind of price point as the Yankees. Far likelihood in terms of projection wise, right, that they're not going to score as much as the Yankees. But again, it's baseball at the end of the day. I'm looking for teams that could match the output of quote unquote the best spot. I think the Phillies are a little interesting just anytime you're facing a walk prone pitcher like a Senga.
Yeah, I think that from the Sanchez versus Mets side, the way I look at it is, I mean, Sanchez is just good enough of a pitcher to keep me from playing the Mets, and the Mets are just too, good enough hitting team to probably keep me from prioritizing Sanchez, especially in tournaments where you need a big ceiling. But from the other side of it, I guess I agree with you. The Phillies, if I had to pick one of the four prongs of this game, you know what I mean? Like, I guess the Phillies against Senga can go go a little bit crazy, and the weather's pretty good here. So yeah, I guess if I had to pick something from this game, it would be the Phillies. But again, 20 max, 33 max and below. Maybe I end up with one Phillies. Again, we talked about this last time. How do the listeners kind of like, profit or take advantage of this stuff? I guess, if you're like between a couple of teams and between the Phillies and somebody else, maybe take another team or something like that. But again, if you get to them in MME, I'm not, I don't make really any changes as far as that goes. But yeah, I guess the Phillies, I would make them my 11th favorite stack or something like that. So you can interpret that however you want.
Yeah, no, excellent breakdown there for sure. Next game, we are going to Milwaukee here. Erod making appearance for the D-backs. And then we've got Brandon Woodruff and the Brewers. Brewers never are the metrics or the projection stack ever, but they just continue to steal bases, continue to score runs, and nobody continues to ever play this team. You're going to look at these. You see a lot of red on this. I don't know what it is about this team. It's my team. It never makes sense, right? They're never the analytical team to play, right? They're never going to look like the Yankees against right-handed pitching or left-handed pitching. But then you pull up the overall numbers against left-handed pitching. Brewers are right there at the top of the list, 4th in OPS in all of baseball, 293 batting average over the last month. And yet nobody still continues to play them. And then you pull up the bullpen for the D-backs. They have been the worst bullpen in the league over the last month. Worse than the Rockies, worse than the Nationals, worse than the Angels. I think the Brewers are very interesting here tonight. I'm not just saying that because I like the Brewers. Nobody's playing them. They have upside. They steal bases. And the roof, the park is going to play above average here with the roof being open tonight. I know it's not the hottest weather, but anytime you take a dome and open the roof, it helps for carry on some of these baseballs. I think this is a pretty interesting spot for the Brewers. What do you see here, Sheets?
Yeah, there's 100 games, 100 teams. When my kids were going to college, or they were applying to college, seems like a long time ago now. One of the things they would always talk about, if a kid wanted to go to like Wisconsin or Michigan, like these big schools, you would always talk to them about maybe some way to make the big school seem small, so that you can get along. And that's the way I kind of look at these like big slates sometimes. Sometimes try to make a big slate a little bit smaller sometimes. So I just can't play everything. So I think that I'm probably going to be off of this. I think Woodruff, I don't really like, again, because of his issues, but he's still good enough to keep me from playing Arizona. And yeah, Milwaukee, I guess they do have a 10-run floor every single game with 18-run upside. But I just can't play everybody. They just don't show up big enough for me in my projections to get to them. So this is probably a team that's going to have to beat me today.
No, for sure. I like that. I know JB's talking about priority hitters. It's very hard to prioritize any of these hitters on the Brewers. And when a team is like that, I much prefer full stacking it, right? And I like building a portfolio. I'm going to be overweight on Brewer stacks. I can't pinpoint hitters outside of a guy like an Andrew Vaughn, just at his price point at 3,700 against a lefty, or a Contreras, right, at a catcher position where I think other guys are going to command more ownership than him. Those are kind of the two priority bats, I'll say. But realistically, this is a stack or nothing. I don't really like the mini stacks because if this team hits, they all hit. That's the way it feels like. And when you can't really prioritize hitters, I much just rather go in on the stack and hopefully I hit the right 5 guys, right, or the combination of guys. Is kind of how I'm approaching the Brewers here tonight, but they will be one of my more exposed to teams. I'm just taking a chance. Erod in that bullpen, even if Erod has his game and goes 5 innings, you still get 3 innings of the league worst bullpen and potentially that bottom of the 9th if the D-backs are scoring runs.
You mentioned last time we did this that you sometimes do like a what'd you call it, a dry run before. What are you seeing right now in your dry run? You using Saber score again? Like what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so in terms of projected score, it's Skubal, DeGrom with Kansas City, the White Sox, and San Diego because of their value. And then if you're spending up, right, if you're not playing a Skubal and a DeGrom, you're playing one of them, and then a guy like Scherzer or Schittler. That's when the Yankee stacks start coming in. Now, when I filter and go to Saber score, right, using Saber's kind of metric that they use, right, to rank tournaments and ownership and everything that they use, it's Skubal still up there as kind of their guy that they're buying on. They're selling on DeGrom. Scherzer, they're buying on, and then guys like McGreevy, Schlittler, and Soriano start coming into play is kind of what I'm seeing. And then that's when teams like the Yankees come up in terms of stacks because, again, you can play them. But I'm seeing some love for teams like Pittsburgh, San Diego, because of the guys at the back half of the lineups, right, are just cheap. And that's why, because it's prioritizing the DeGrom and Scherzer projection, or the DeGrom and Skubal projection in those floors, quote unquote, projection floors that they have.
Gotcha. Okay.
Next game on the slate, White Sox and the Royals. White Sox have been smashing baseballs. This was our team we talked about a week ago. Today, against our friend Spencer Strider. Now they face a rookie here in Noah Cameron, who has flashes of upside and then flashes of disaster. Both teams are cheap here. The Royals are going to be the more popular team here against Shane Smith, who isn't the worst pitcher in the league. I mean, he's at least serviceable. But the Royals lefties firmly in play here. The weather, not great in terms of temperature, but wind blown out, being in Chicago. Pretty substantial wind blown out. It's going to be kind of double digits the entire duration of the game from what I'm seeing, right around that 10 to 12 mile an hour range, blowing straight out to center. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. So not the coldest game. Bad bullpen behind Shane Smith. Apparently Vinny P just is Barry Bonds right now. This dude is murdering baseballs. But talk to me on the Royals. They are the projection cheap stack on the slate, or even 5-man stack, because it allows you to double spend up at pitcher, right? The Scherzers, the DeGroms, and the Skubals of the world. So talk to me what that does for you in terms of.
That's what I mentioned earlier. I do have the White Sox, the Royals rated as the top overall value stack on the board, and I have them just as popular as the Yankees, honestly. But we'll just see if that actually happens. But as you mentioned, I mean, the White Sox do not rate that much lower than the Royals for me. And I do have them, even though they might get some love, because, again, if they're coming through in your dry runs, they're probably coming through for some other people as well. But they're still going to be probably half the ownership of the Royals. So I'm kind of into the White Sox here. So honestly, it's both these teams. So you want to go for a 4. You can even play like a 4-4 game stack of this thing and hope the baseball gods are just kind to the whole stadium. So I like both these teams, but the Royals are on the chalkier side. So I think the White Sox are very, very, very good pivot, actually.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like the White Sox a lot. I wrote them up in the slate plan as my favorite value stack. I get it. The Royals are right there. They're the projection stack. They're good. I prefer guys like Yastrzemski and Pasquantino. I want the lefties mainly for the Royals. I get it. Bobby Witt's great. Has a ton of upside, on fire right now, all the things there, but I'd rather home run hunt and just kind of middle it a little bit. So guys like Vinny P is by far my favorite Royals bat. Just at 4,500. The back half, I think, is going to get a little bit more inflated because, it allows you to play the guys that everyone wants to click, right? The Skuballs, the DeGroms of the world, and you can play both of them and still 5-stack a Royals team that's implied right around 5 runs against the White Sox pitching staff. So it just makes it feel too easy almost. So pivoting the White Sox, I think, is very interesting. And it's not just because they did the job last Monday. This team has been not the same team people realize, right? When you pull the numbers on this team, these guys are young. They're trying to hit their way out of Chicago and get to a contender is the way I'm looking at it. Luis Robert against the lefty, I think he's great. Miguel Vargas has been smashing. I think he's good. Lenyn Sosa has been really good. So I think the White Sox are really good in tournaments. Michael Taylor, don't forget about him either. He strikes out a lot, but he does have a ton of power against lefties. And at that price point, he hits 1 home run. You're more than happy with that. So I prefer Vargas, Sosa, Robert, and Taylor, the 2, 4, 5, 7, and then add in whoever else you want. If you want a 5-man stack them, I think they fit really good as a direct pivot right there off the chalky roll side of the game in the exact same hitting conditions. Next game on the slate, McGreevy, Oviedo on the mound here. Oviedo, wild arm, throws very hard. That can lead to disaster, or it can lead to a performance like we saw in his last start here. Cardinals don't strike out a ton, but, I mean, you got guys like Nathan Church, Sagassi. I mean, this team has been injury-riddled. They're just not the same lineup they have been of years past. This is a game I just don't love for offense on either side, personally. Can't play them all. I don't want to say and try and make something fit here. if I had to pick a side, it'd just be some of these Cardinals guys, just with the disaster that Oviedo could have in terms of walks. But I think there's much better places to play bats than in this park and this game. So for me, I'm under on it. What do you see here, Sheets?
Yeah, so I have my kind of leverage score that I have for some of my stacks, where I figure out what I think they're going to score and how much I think they're going to be owned. Never really perfected enough to put it out publicly or whatever, but I happen to, for whatever reason, I happen to have Pittsburgh rated pretty high here, and I guess part of it is like what you said. I mean, they have to do some real cheapos in here. So I think McGreevy, like you said, is probably going to get played a little bit.
You got them around 10 to 15% right now.
Yeah, so I do have the Pirates again. It's a knuckleball type team. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not playing them in single entry or anything like that. But I do have Pittsburgh rated pretty decently. I would love to say play the Cardinals for all the reasons I mentioned Oviedo earlier, but they're just not showing up. It's not close. You know what I mean? If St. Louis was like really close to being well projected, I'd play them, but they're just not showing up for me. So for me, I'll play a little Pittsburgh in MMA.
Yeah, I don't hate that. The lefties is kind of where I would go first. If you're kind of breaking it down for the people out there, I'd go to the lefties, guys like Horwitz, Sawinski, Brian Reynolds. I think I get Reynolds is a little bit more expensive than the rest, but again, he's still cheap. I mean, the dude's 4,500. He has power, things like that. Horwitz, 3,200. He's basically free. I mean, yeah. So I don't hate that. But overall, not a game that I'm too excited in. Sabres agrees with you, Sheets, on the Pirates. When I flip to Sabre score, the Pirates start popping up, and usually that's a pretty good thing to at least key in on. Not to say that the Pirates are going to go out there and do their thing, but it's for all the reasons that you mentioned, right? McGreevy's the cheap guy that people want to play to get up to the Yankees, to get up to the DeGroms and Screwballs of the world. So a team like the Pirates, Sabre looks as the kind of key to unlock that. Do people agree with it and click it? I don't think so, to an extent that you have to be worried about it, just because, again, it's the Pirates and everybody looks at this team as who's pitching against them. Let me play that guy, right? Next game on the slate, Rangers and the Angels. Soriano, DeGrom on the mound here. We had our breakdown that we did on DeGrom just with the pitch count issues and all of that and the ownership on this big of a slate. If you're looking for leverage, this would be the spot. I don't love it personally. I think there's other spots on the slate. I think just being under on DeGrom is enough leverage overall. Not to say you have to go on and run to play the Angels, but I'm curious to see what you say about this one. Angels and the Rangers, lowest total on the board.
Somebody put in the chat there's going to be no Trout, or there has been no Trout or whatever. It's a rough scene. You know what I mean? Like trying to play the Angels against DeGrom, It certainly makes sense from a leverage perspective, but the reason why I don't really want to play DeGrom is not because I think he's going to be bad. I just don't think he's going to pitch enough, But to play, I think that if you tell me DeGrom's going to get 5 innings and 79, 81 pitches, I can't imagine the Angels do that much, especially without Trout against him. So I don't think I have it in me to get there, honestly. The team I kind of want to play Texas. I don't Texas. I hope that people don't get too cute with this Soriano thing because your take is basically what shows up on the projections. I mean, he's 500, doesn't make a lot of sense. And throughout the whole industry, everybody's kind of agreeing with it. I just hope that he doesn't become like that 15% guy. You know what I mean? That people just play because if that's the case, then Texas is probably going to look like a pretty good freaking stack here. So I do like Texas a little bit, but I can't get to the Angels.
Yeah, I agree. If I were to go to Texas, it'd be the lefties for sure and the fly ball guys. Tellez, Corey Seager, Jonah Heim, Jack Peterson figured out how to hit again a little bit at least. He's the projection guy that everyone's he's gonna pop. Hit a bomb yesterday, I believe, 2,300. Lefties is what you want against Soriano and guys that hit the ball in the air, and Jock does fit that. So I'm hoping Soriano is not the guy that gets steamed to a 15 to 20% range, because I think he'd be a bad play at that point, but I just don't see it. I mean, his projection is just not there. He's projected to be right around that 5 to 10% range right now, which could definitely lead to 15 to 20. If that's the case, I think the Rangers are pretty good leverage off of him. This is a tough spot to uncover here because 5,700 just feels ridiculous for a guy that's been in the mid to upper sevens and has shown a 30-point ceiling on the season. I don't know. It's a tough spot for me. If he does, ownership does come up, at least projected wise, leading up the lock. I think the lefties for the Rangers make some sense. And you always, the added bonus with the Rangers is you still have that Angels bullpen behind Soriano, right? So there's still going to be upside for the Rangers. I'd focus on the lefties. I can't get to the Angels. Personally, I'm with you there. It's just not a spot that I want to go in on against DeGrom. Last couple games on the slate, the 3 night games. First one, we are out in Seattle. Bryce Miller on the mound. JP Sears, fly baller, coming over from Athletics to San Diego at the deadline. Padres, Mariners, ballpark sucks, but both these pitchers I don't think are that great. What wins out here, Sheets? Any interest in these stacks?
Yeah, I don't know why not everybody, but why you're in your dry run, and even in my dry run before I started to really get aggressive with the Sims here, getting all these Padres. I don't know. I have better things to do than stack teams in Seattle. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I'm probably off of this game for the most part, and especially if, God forbid, San Diego gets ownership or something like that. I don't know. So for me, this game is probably sort of a pass for me.
Yeah, if I had to pick any side, it'd be the Seattle side, and it'd be home run power hunting. I'm not 5-stacking Seattle. I think that's absurd. I'm a ballpark guy. It's the numbers, studies. You can go back years, right? This park has been the worst park to stack in the last 5 seasons in a row. So you're just kind of really hoping for lightning in a bottle. But guys like, obviously, Cal Raleigh, right? Eugenio Suarez, I think, is really interesting, though, at 4,700. Murders lefties. Not a lot of people are going to play him. Mitch Garver, if you need a cheap punt catcher who has a lot of power against lefties, and Sears gives up fly balls. So from a home run perspective, one-off power, this park has not been that bad this season in terms of just power and home runs, but overall stack and run support, I think that's where it kind of falls down the list for me. So I'd rather just home run power hunt with 2 or 3 2-man stacks for the Mariners side of things of this one. Yeah, I don't want the Padres in this game, and I'm not sure why they're kind of hitting projections. I get it, right? When your team is 3,600, 3,200, 3,800, 3,300, and the way the slate sets up with the spin up pitching, so that makes sense to me. It's not something that I want to click and agree with personally.
Are you the one that puts this together?
The Stone?
Yeah.
No. So this is by our projection team here behind the scenes. So these are all home road splits. So all the teams on the left that you see, all of these numbers that you're seeing in these at-bat columns are all against right-handed pitchers on the road for the course of the season. Same thing for the pitcher numbers. These pitcher numbers that you see and why you might think they're a little bit different when you're looking at season-long numbers, these are only Scooball's road numbers. These are only Ginn's home numbers here and vice versa. So this shows home road splits versus the handedness for all the kind of key metrics. So it's an amazing one-stop shop. It's got all of our rankings right on it as well, right? For hitter rankings, our pitcher rankings as well, that we see it for metrics-wise and data-wise, as well as the projections here on it as well. Next game is the best spot for hitting, quote-unquote, weather in ballpark, which I'm big in. And then you look at JT Ginn. You see the Tigers here, and I'm not sure why the Tigers are projected as low as they are in terms of ownership against Ginn here, who has probably arguably the biggest splits in all of the majors. This dude is a rookie ball player against lefties and a way above average pitcher against righties. The issue is in this matchup, he's facing the Tigers where all of their best hitters hit from the left side for the most part, in exception to Spencer Torkelson. You look at Ginn, sub 20% K rate to lefties, sitting right around that 16, 17% mark, tons of power allowed. And you look at the Tigers against righties, they have a ton of lefties that murder righties. I think the Tigers are really, really interesting here. I'm hoping ownership stays true and they're really going to be this low owned. Because give me some of these lefties for the Tigers. Full 9 at bats against Ginn in this bullpen and this ballpark in this weather, 90 degrees with double-digit wind blowing out here in Sacramento. I'll take my chances on a Tigers team here, but what do you see?
So I'll talk about these next two games in a block, just if you don't mind for a second. So as you guys know, I'm a real big believer in late swapping and using SaberSim to help me with that. Because what SaberSim does is if you do it right, it'll take into account previous ownerships of these games. So when you rebuild your lineups, it takes that into consideration. So usually at this time between 8:05 and 9:40 Eastern, when you have this gap, the very least you'll want to do a late swap. And there's a lot of differences in these late games. You have this Detroit Athletics game where you have Detroit highly owned with Skubal, and then you have Hunter Green in the last game. If you didn't want to just kind of trust SaberSim to kind of do late swap for you, what you could just even think about, if you look and see how you're doing in like these early games, you're probably going to end up with, you'll probably have Skubal and the Tigers to some degree. If you're not doing all that well and you have Skubal and the Tigers, what you could do is you could say, screw everybody, and then play the Athletics and then go to Hunter Green. You know what I mean? In that last game, if you don't have him already. Because everything you said is correct. Like Detroit's going to look really good. I don't believe it for a second that it's going to be that low owned. I think it's going to be probably maybe fourth highest owned behind Yankees, Kansas City, maybe even third highest owned. I'm not even like, who else is going to be as high owned as them? I'm not even sure. So Detroit's going to be chalky, I think. And I think that they're certainly going to make sense. But what's cool about it is you could put this into your lineups now. And then if things aren't going your way, you could certainly pivot all the way to the Athletics or even Cincinnati or something like that. But Detroit certainly makes a lot of sense. And let's talk about what's important. Like Skubal's the best play on the slate, and he's going to be probably one of the two highest owned on the slate. Is it worth taking some shots at the Athletics? Because like everybody's been saying, Athletics can mash the ball. They can uber mash the ball against lefties. And last I checked, Tarik Skubal is in fact a lefty. So people are asking, would you try for one-offs for the Athletics? Sure. Why not? Would you go for a 5-man stack against Skubal? I would actually say yes. They're going to be so low owned that what people are going to probably do is exactly what people are suggesting. You know what? Maybe in my non-Skubal lineups, I'll take like a Rookers or a Langoliers or whatever because, whatever. But I don't have it in me to 5-man stack. Well, go ahead. Play a 5-man stack. Well, if Skubal doesn't have his best stuff, you're going to get like 2-3% owned guys in the late night hammer to hopefully catch up to everybody. So I do like the Athletics and as the low owned stack, but Detroit does look good as kind of the chalky stack.
Yeah. So I just went back and I just filtered back instead of Saber score to projected score with kind of an aggregate of a bunch of our projection, Sabres projection, and then some other projection sources that a lot of people use across the industry. And it's Kansas City, it's San Diego, it's the White Sox, it's the Yankees, and then Detroit's down at 3% sacks. Wow. Because the reason being is you look at the guys you want to play. Kerry Carpenter, 5,100. Riley Green, 5,500. Wenzel Perez, 4,300. McKinstry, 4,300. You can't double spend. You can't play a DeGrom and a Skubal. You have to get weary at pitcher. So that's the reason being. And I'll take my chances to flip the build there and go two of those guys in the mid tier, right? Go a Schlittler or go one of those other guys or sacrifice. Maybe I sacrifice a DeGrom and a Skubal and I go like a Hunter Green Schlittler and make that work with a cheap mini stack, right? So something like that. That's kind of why I like the Tigers. They shouldn't be this low owned. It's just going to be a natural. It's going to be a product of when people are spending up, they want to click on the Yankees. And when people don't want to click on the Yankees, they're going to go to Kansas City, right? Projections wise, everything, metrics wise, it all looks similar, if not better than what the Tigers look in this matchup. So that's kind of why I'm so high on the Tigers here. I think this ownership does hold true. And if you're going to give me a low-owned Tigers team against a righty who has mega splits against left-handed hitters in the best ballpark and hitting environment on the slate, I'll take my chances in tournaments. So that's why I'm in on the Tigers. And then the A side, I agree with you. I think the A's are interesting here, and it feels monotonous, right? It feels ridiculous that we're talking about the A's against arguably probably the Cy Young, right, in Tarik Skubal here. But you look at the A's, I talked about it. They're fourth in OPS or second in OPS against lefties over the last month, 281 average, and they got a ton of home runs. I mean, they're second in the league, I think, or third in the league in home runs against lefties over that span. And everybody is going to do exactly what you said, right? If they're going here, they're going to click a Rooker. They're going to click a Langeliers. What's the mention if you do 5-stack these guys in like a 5? This isn't a single entry or 3-max take, right? This is $5 knuckleball, right? Where you're trying to beat 35,000 people or 37,000 people, whatever it is, to get to top. And then you look at the Tigers bullpen over the last month, the 26th in baseball from what I'm tracking. You look at their usage, 6 of their arms have thrown 20-plus pitches in the last 3 days. They used 4 relievers yesterday on Sunday. 2 of them guys both throwing over 20. They haven't been great. So if Screwball doesn't have his best stuff, or even if he does and he gets into long counts, I mean, you still have upside with the A's who smash lefties. So there is a lot of takes. Do I prefer more as a mini stack? Absolutely. Am I probably getting to the A's in single entry 3-max stuff? No. Is it going to take much to be overweight on this team that's going to be 1% owned in tournaments? I don't think so. Do they have more of a 1% chance to be on the winner than what projections show? I think so. So that's a good tournament stack in my opinion. I'm right there with you on them. And the last game I'll group in, I think Sheehan's interesting in terms of a pitcher in that mid-tier that nobody's going to click against a strikeout-happy Reds team. And then Hunter Green, I think, was one of my favorite pitchers that I mentioned on the entire slate. So for me, not a hitting game, but late swap, definitely. I agree with you. Saber does a really, really good job. If you do filter the ownership source to live ownership of the contest you're in, it will account for that when it is running late swaps to give you a better chance to be more profitable. It's not always going to work, but it's worked really well for me when I have started using that.
Well, I'm gonna say something else about this game, for a similar reason that we look for leverage against good plays or whatever. If you have Detroit and you find a way to make these 5K guys work or whatever, it's also nothing wrong by playing the Dodgers like in non-Hunter Green stacks, non-Hunter Green teams, because Hunter Green is awesome, but he also has variance, and the Dodgers can be very patient. And if you get the Hunter Green that can't find the plate, we haven't seen him in a while, but he's in there somewhere. And you get the Dodgers at, I imagine, frighteningly low ownership. That's not the worst idea in the world either. Like, I'll tell you, like, you talk about your dry run, you come up with whatever. I just did like an initial sim, like including ownership and all that stuff. Like, my top team, actually, close my eyes, are the Reds. And you ask me why? No idea. Okay, that's just what I'm getting. So these late night games are very good for late swap. So if you want to like commit at least the beginning to at least some of these teams, you could always shuffle them around a little bit later. So it's a really, really big slate. I definitely think the winner is not going to be known until like 1 a.m.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is I think this mimics a lot of what happened over the weekend, right? With the Cubs out in LA, right? They kind of dictated what was going to happen with the slate, even when teams did score a ton early, right? I think you could see that with teams like the Tigers, this Reds Dodgers game, even heck, that Seattle Padres game, right? So I think it is definitely going to be a long night. I think it's a really good slate in general. I think we broke it down really, really good. Content is live over at ShipItNation.com. Sheets is in the Discord. I'm in the Discord. You do have access to us pretty available, pretty readily available, I should say, if you are a member over there. So head over there. I know a comment in here. I know this isn't too much in your specialty, Sheets. Our guy Jimmy wants some home run calls, I think, because the Friday show with Ham and our guy Rio went 4 for 4. I cashed in a nice little $10 into $4,200 in terms of a parlay there. But do you want to give Jimmy a home run call before we get out of here?
I'll give one that's probably chalky, and I'll give one that's off the board. How about that? Ben Rice for the Yankees. What is he, like, even money? I don't even do these things.
He's probably plus 310 or something like that.
That's it? Who needs that? How about we'll take one from let's go with what's his name, the guy that mentioned. Let's go with Langeliers.
Langeliers and Rice, I like that. The odds, I don't really care about the odds too much. Usually, I'm throwing a $10 ticket on these and hoping to hit the lightning, right?
Okay.
Because you're not betting outright. At least you shouldn't be betting an outright home run. I mean, it's just the value is just not there, right? And you're just sucker betting the books there. So ultimately, I don't really care what the odds are, unless it's like an Ohtani that's like even money every time he's out, right? So you had Langeliers and Ben Rice. I'm going to go Vinny Pasquantino, first base for the Royals, which is kind of my chalkier one. And then I'll go on the Tigers, Colt Keith. But if Colt Keith is not in that lineup for the Tigers, I'll go Zach McKinstry.
And those get voided, right? If your guy doesn't start?
Yeah, I think they get voided out. Yeah. So Colt Keith, McKinstry, Vinny P., Ben Rice, and Shea Langeliers will be some home runs. Don't bet the house on it. Have some fun. Good luck tonight in those contests. Hope to see those SHIPIT Nation logos at the top. 4 sheets. Appreciate you joining me. I'm Nades. We'll catch you guys next time. Good luck tonight.